We were talking about culture a little bit, and maybe that is a segue into what do you see in Rockford as spiritual needs, and
Spiritual need.
how do you experience that here at the mission?
So it's interesting you should phrase it spiritual needs, because we do have a lot of community partners who are trying to meet the relational, mental, physical, emotional needs.
Yeah, all very real.
All very real. And there is a tendency in church world to hyper separate the spiritual from the material. But really it's all one human being and it's all one creation. And so I do see those things as intersecting. And really it's how do you find God as your all in all who provides all those things. But in the community, in terms of spiritual needs, we actually have a lot of churches in the area. What I see, though, and it's something my heart's passionate about, is there are so many church attenders, but aside from a handful of church programs, non-for-profits, the mission included, we don't always see believers just out doing the outreach that we would love to see. I'm grateful for volunteers. I'm grateful for donors. I'm grateful for churches that partner or do their own unique grassroots things. But the spiritual need that I see is for believers to get a little more uncomfortable. Because we know about the material needs. But if we can only see how much God cares about the whole picture, and we carry with us the words of life, I mean, to enter into the entire array of human need with the source of hope, wow. I mean, so when I hear need, I'm like, I need to see more Christians spurring each other on to get their feet and their hands a little dirty, to be a little less comfortable, and to see how much more God can do. I mean, I think sometimes we see roadblocks when we look at our own abilities or we have our anxieties about getting out of our comfort zone. But, Jesus took his disciples into a boat, set a storm over them, and took a nap. And then they wake him up, and he basically asks, I'm paraphrasing, but where was your faith? And then after he calms the storm, the text says, in Luke's gospel at least, then they became afraid. So you thought they were afraid? They were afraid when they realized, oh, the one who has the authority over all this actually let this happen, and we were okay the whole time. And they were afraid of who he is. So the spiritual need I see, in summary, is for believers to be okay to not be okay, to not be comfortable, to be okay to take risks and see what the Lord can do when we share our life and our resources and the gospel with those around us.
So let's take that a little farther, this idea of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. Certainly, working at the mission is largely uncomfortable.
It is.
What do you do to prepare yourself for that spiritually, whatever it may look like? Because I think whether people are working here or anywhere, there's some value in thinking about preparation, right?
Of course. Well, on my car rides in, I pray. And I pray over myself. I pray over my supervisor, my supervisees, their staff. I invite God to just tell us what we need to know for today. Lead us in your spirit. Lead us in your truth. I pray that typically you'd think if you're praying the armor of God, you're praying it over yourself. But I ask that they would get armor too, and the Lord could figure out how that works. And I do pray over some key areas where I know here's our goals, here's our vision, but we fall short because we're not perfect. And I just pray that God would help us fill those gaps. And I do pray over our guests and our residents for growth, for salvation. And so really it's about being with the Lord in it, but having a mindset so that when you step out, you're fearless. Head first fearless, to quote Taylor Swift.
And then
not
we're
your
back
favorite
to
quote.
the cultural connection.
That actually is my favorite quote.
All right, so we'll edit that. And your favorite quote is now Taylor Swift.
Yes.
What's something maybe you've learned that surprised you since you've worked here?
Since I've worked here? Well, I've been surprised by how much I can endure in terms of, it's a fast pace here, especially when you're in leadership. Yeah. I mean, everyone's job here is busy. And you're on all the time because you're in ministry mode. You're in relationship mode. But then the leadership definitely experiences a double dose of you're running fast. And I've been surprised to learn how much I can endure, but also how much grace God has when a few things just fall through the cracks, because inevitably they will.
Sure.
And I've been also surprised to see, well, you have to have a sense of humor at times to endure some of what you see in a day. So I've been surprised how comfortable I can get with messiness. But I think having a sense of humor is part of God's way of helping you cope at times. But yeah, just you can be comfortable in the Lord's presence in the midst of messiness. And you don't, it's counterintuitive, but it's real.
Yeah. So, in finishing up for today, what has been some of the impact that you've seen on our guests and residents on when you show that hospitality and that love effectively? What's been some of those good stories there?
Well, when someone gets a second chance or they're treated better than they think they deserve, you see them go from a tense posture, a defensive posture, to just relaxed, open, maybe smiling, from like fearful to peaceful. Here's another example. Just earlier this week, I had a great day. I decided in the morning to visit both shelters, connect with the staff a bit. And when I go to the women's shelter, our supervisor, Leona, and one of our staff members were dancing with this mom and her child. And they were celebrating that they just got housing. I mean, they were waiting for, several days. They're on the wait list. Then I go to the men's shelter and I meet a guy for the first time. He came 2 weeks ago, but I haven't had the chance to meet him yet. And Tony, one of our coordinators, or actually one of our advocates, he introduces me to him. I shake his hand. The guy looks a little timid, like, who's this random dude who just walked in? And Tony's like, he's cool. He's cool. Okay, so we start talking. We talk about his goals. Turns out he's only been here 2 weeks. And he's like, in the upcoming weeks, I already have these meetings lined up. I'm going to talk to some people. I should be on my way out of here. Some guests take a while, but he was on it. Tony was working well with him. And I saw confidence in that man. I saw joy in the mom and her daughter. And that's the result of hospitality. That's the result of giving people a chance, welcoming them in, and giving them the time and assistance needed for them to reach the goals they want to reach. Like, are you in their corner to support them as they do the work? And I was just so happy. It was a great start to this month and this quarter for me.
It's interesting what you said about picking up on body language too, is that you're not always going to hear those results out of the mouth of somebody, but you may pick it up and you, I'm sure you learn this over time, how to perceive that someone's doing better.
Yeah. And sometimes we will hear testimonies. Like, for example, there are some women in our shelter who went through the shelter program, they've been housed, and they've reached their goals. Weeks or months later, they visit just to tell Miss Leona, our supervisor, when I first came here, I didn't like you. I thought you were mean. I didn't like that you were holding me accountable. I thought that everything you were saying was like all these rules. And I'm like, isn't Christians supposed to just like love on me? But I realized actually you were enforcing what I needed to get the pieces together and get somewhere healthy. So again, grace is not cheap. Grace isn't just let anything go. But you do have patience. You do have compassion as you coach someone towards what's healthy, towards what God wants for them, his best for them. So she saw that, came back later in a healthier state of mind and said, I had you all wrong. You actually challenged me because you loved me.